really. Yeah, happy Buddha Day. The most significant date in the Buddhist calendar. And this morning I wanted to talk a little bit around the events that lead up to the Buddha's awakening, to Siddhartha's awakening. And I know that many people here today will be more than familiar with all of these events. But I think Bhante said that there are no new teachings, just deeper understandings. So I think it's quite pertinent that we revisit the events of the Buddha's awakening and see them, try to understand them in different ways, in different lights. We can understand these events literally. We can understand them spiritually. We can understand them psychologically. And I'm intrigued by the events leading up to the Buddha's enlightenment. So I've made a few notes, so if you'll forgive me, I'll refer to those from time to time. And just walk us through those events, those very significant events. When we look at these events, I think it's impossible to describe the nature of these events in any rational way. The scriptures describe the events surrounding the awakening in a deeply symbolic, poetic way. And I think that sometimes in our culture, we have a tendency to look at things in quite a linear manner, a sort of neat chronology that assumes an understanding of events. And that can be useful. But when we come to look at a life, it's not enough. It's not enough to say, she was born on such and such a day. She went to work and she got married and she had 2 kids and she lived her life. And then she got sick and she died. Just a name on an epitaph. A literal understanding of a person's life. It doesn't tell us anything about her heart. It doesn't tell us anything about her as a human. And it's the same with the Buddha. We know, it's useful to know, to recall that the Buddha lived 2,500 years ago, that he grew up in a certain place, that he married a certain person, that he had a child, that he had an existential crisis, that he left home and wandered around northern India for many years. He became enlightened, he taught, he died, and he left behind a legacy that we in the West call Buddhism. And all of this is useful, all of this is interesting. But it doesn't tell us anything about Siddhartha. It doesn't tell us anything about the person, the quest. It doesn't tell us anything about his heart. It doesn't tell us anything about the Buddha. The scriptures present Siddhartha's awakening using symbolism that reaches beyond the rational mind. It reaches into our hearts. And retelling his journey toward enlightenment, this profound experience that really is the beginning of Buddhism. Really, WESAK is the birth of Buddhism, the birth of the Dharma, the birth of the truth. And moreover, it invites the possibility of awakening for every being. Invites the possibility of awakening for every being, even for you even for me, the possibility of awakening. The possibility of a profound understanding of our life. So let's look a little at Siddhartha, because he's such an approachable character, isn't he? He's such an approachable character. Because the scriptures bring us to meet this young man who is ostensibly having a pretty good life. In fact, he has everything money can buy and more. Every source of happiness, every earthly satisfaction. He has health and strength and beauty, intellect, status, security. He has everything the world can offer. Everything the world can offer him, he has. And yet, he has a deep dissatisfaction in his heart. A deep yearning, a deep lack. Dukkha. And we can identify with the dilemma of this young man because we feel the same. Perhaps that's what's brought us to the Dharma. Because perhaps we too notice a longing, a yearning. And this is important because when we begin to notice that things don't fix this lack, this longing, perhaps they fix it for a short time. The new job, the new relationship, the new house, the new car. But the respite from the longing is temporary. Even though it's a relief when it happens, it leads us to make a tragic mistake. It leads us to believe that the thing that leads us into a respite is what has fixed the longing, but it's just a temporary absence of longing. And this is the tragedy that Siddhartha saw, because we continue to search for a fix, to fix the lack. He knows that it's the craving, the longing that we need to address. The constant search for the next fix will not do it for us. We need to sit with this longing for long enough to understand it. Siddhartha sees that he and we go from life to life in this way, searching for happiness in all of the wrong places. Looking for a cozy corner in samsara. I'm speaking for myself now. Always looking for a cozy corner in samsara where I can settle down. Where I can settle down with Buddhism as a sort of hobby. A vague safety net for when things get tough. But I'm just on repeat, press the repeat button. And it's this desperate search that Siddhartha saw, this desperate search for happiness. It's this that engendered such great compassion in him, that he goes forth in search of a lasting, permanent, deathless state beyond dukkha. He saw the problem and he had the great courage to act. So he goes forth, doesn't he? In a very traditional way, the scriptures tell us he goes forth, he cuts off his long hair, he leaves his life of luxury behind. He becomes a wanderer, a renunciant, a shramana. And we know he trains and he endures hardship, extreme deprivation to the point of death, in search of the truth, in search of the farther shore. And as practitioners, we know somewhere in our hearts that we must go forth in our own way, in a way that allows us a more authentic understanding of ourselves. So in the scriptures, we meet Siddhartha years later, after all of his indulgent life is long gone. And when he's given up the deprivations, when he's exhausted. And so on the full moon night in May, WESAK, he sits beneath a tree, sits beneath the Bodhi tree. Where else can he go now? Every road has led him to this place. He sits beneath a tree and he makes a vow. I like Vishvapani's rendition of the Buddha's vow. My flesh may wither, my blood may dry up until only skin, sinews, and bones remain, but I will not give up until I have found what firmness, persistence, and effort can bring, until I have found liberation. I will sit here unflinching, utterly still. He makes this vow and the earth shudders. He makes this vow and the earth shudders. And Mara hears this vow, recognizes the energy, the determination, the immanence in this vow. Mara has heard Siddhartha's vow. And who is Mara really? The Lord of Death. His job is to keep humanity in ignorance. He cannot allow the Buddha to break through. He cannot allow Siddhartha to break through ignorance. But Siddhartha's energies are all aligned. There he sits, under the Bodhi tree. Mara is primordial spiritual ignorance. As long as Mara persists, Mara will run the show. And this is what Siddhartha is challenging more than the status quo. Siddhartha is challenging Mara's very existence, the very existence of ignorance, challenging primordial spiritual ignorance. Now Mara has woken up. Siddhartha's vow has set in motion a whole series of deeply symbolic events. Perhaps Mara lives in the darkest corners of our hearts. Mara lives in the darkness, thrives in the darkness. Carl Jung, in his alchemical studies, says, one doesn't become enlightened by visualizing the light, but by making the darkness conscious. By making the darkness conscious. Mara plays to our fears. And in Siddhartha's case, he sends in his grotesque foot soldiers to assault Siddhartha. His foot soldiers of fear, doubt, hatred, anger. But none of them can penetrate. None of them can penetrate Siddhartha's love and compassion and patience and generosity and tolerance. None of the foot soldiers can penetrate this shield. Siddhartha is steadfast, all his energies moving in one direction toward awakening. He is free from anger, free from these crude energies. And in a final, perhaps for us, massively politically incorrect maneuver, Mara sends in his daughters, lust, passion, and desire, to engage Siddhartha, but to no avail. Still, he sits unmoved. The weapons turn to flowers, the seduction remains unheeded. And all of this represents anger, aversion, hatred, craving, desire. All of them are defeated. They're no longer part of Siddhartha's experience. Mara is defeated. Ignorance is uncovered. Siddhartha is awakened. But Mara still has something to say. He sows the seed of doubt in the Buddha. Now is the Buddha sitting there and Mara comes back and sows the seed of doubt. Who are you to claim this knowledge? Who are you to wipe away ignorance? Who are you to challenge me? You're just an ordinary man. You can't challenge me. I'm ignorance, keeping humanity in the dark. Don't challenge me. And the Buddha replies, I have practiced for lifetimes, practiced patience, giving, morality, generosity, energy, meditation, and wisdom. I have the right to sit here. I have the right to challenge you. It is my birthright. It is every human being's birthright to challenge ignorance. Mara says, well, you say this. Who can back you up? Who else has witnessed this? And once again, the earth shudders. The earth trembles, and the earth goddess appears. I have been here since the beginning of time, she says. I have seen everything. I have witnessed everything. I am the earth. And I have witnessed him. And he is worthy. He is worthy to sit here. He has the right to sit here on the diamond throne that challenges ignorance. The earth witnesses the Buddha, witnesses humanity's potential to Buddhahood. She has seen it all. She knows who the Buddha is. She knows what humanity is capable of in its depths and in its heights. And she knows what is needed. She's been waiting for the Buddha. Now Mara departs. The earth has witnessed the Buddha. And he sits under the tree. We're told for 7 weeks he sits under the tree. And he reflects on the truth. He reflects on reality. He reflects on his own breaking through of ignorance, of primordial ignorance. He knows how things really are. But he reflects, who will understand? Who will know? Who can I speak to? Perhaps I'll stay here under the tree. Stay here, stay quiet. The earth shudders again, and a vision arises to the Buddha. The vision of Brahma, the Lord of the 1,000 worlds, comes to the Buddha and asks him to teach out of compassion for humanity. There are some who will understand. There is such pain in the world. Some will come to understand. And the Buddha sees the lake of lotuses. He sees some of the lotuses in the mud, in the darkness, lying dormant in the darkness of the mud, in the darkness of spiritual ignorance. And some in the murky water, struggling towards the light, and some in the clear, fresh water, reaching toward the sun. And some at the surface about to break through. All of humanity here in this lotus lake. All of humanity witnessed by the earth, seen by the Buddha. Out of compassion for the world he teaches. And he continues to sit. The Buddha continues to sit under the Bodhi tree. In deep and profound meditation, and it begins to rain. And rain and rain and rain. A baptism of rain. A downpouring such as the earth has never seen before. And the land begins to flood. The rain-soaked land forms deep lakes. And from the depths of these lakes comes Musalinda, the king of the serpents, the Naga. He rises up from the flooded lakes. He coils around the Buddha and spreads his cobra hood over the head of the Buddha to protect him. This dark figure from the depths of the waters, this Naga, this unknown force from the depths of our unconscious, of the Buddha's unconscious, rises up. He is primordial energy. He rises up, protects the Buddha, and as the rains stop, he is transmuted, transformed into the most beautiful of youths, who approaches the Buddha and bows to the Buddha. this primordial energy, this primordial unconscious, transmuted into energy, beauty, and truth in service of the enlightened mind. So quite a drama, quite a story. Siddhartha overcoming his fears, overcoming anger, craving, those negative energies, no longer holding him prisoner, breaking through the ignorance represented by Mara, witnessed by the earth herself. She knows the Buddha, encouraged by Brahma to teach out of compassion for the world. And the depths of the unknown consciousness transmuted, tamed, understood from the crude, fearful energies of the Naga, in the depths to the beauty and tenderness of the youth in service to the Buddha's enlightened mind. So that brings me to the end of my little talk. And